Please welcome Jeng, our first company demo, Freed. Freed's AI intelligent assistant listens, transcribes, and converts patient conversations into comprehensive SOAP notes, saving clinicians hours and improving quality of life and efficiency. Thank you for being here, Jack.
Thank you. All right. Before we start, can I just get a show of hands? How many people in this room use generative AI on a daily basis? Okay, that's a lot of you. How many of you use generative AI in your work or school on a daily basis? Okay. I mean, I'm not too surprised because I do think this crowd is probably very much an early adopter. I think what did surprise me was learning that physicians and other clinicians are one of the fastest adopters of generative AI technology in their workflow. I still remember when I started medical school, my first day, they gave me a pager. And I may look old to some of the students here, but I'm really not that old. I mean, I already had an iPhone, and it's kind of weird having an iPhone in one pocket and a pager in the other. And I was at the Mayo Clinic, which, is kind of known for being an innovative health system. But it was also in the Midwest, so I just kind of assumed, hey, this is what it's like here. I'm sure in other places it's not going to be like that. So when I graduated from medical school and did my residency training at UCSF, I thought for sure it was going to be different, right? San Francisco, tech center of the world, right? Got there, first week of orientation, gave me a pager and showed me how to use the fax machine. So that's healthcare, right? That's, it's kind of what healthcare is known for. So it was really shocking to me when I started working with Freed a little bit over a year ago to see the kind of adoption that Freed was already getting. Freed was still a very small startup when I joined, less than 10 people. But within 1 year of launching the product, Freed was able to go from $0 of revenue to over $10 million in ARR in just 1 year. And that kind of traction is pretty rare for any startup, especially a healthcare one. And that allowed us to, raise our Series A round, which was led by Sequoia Capital last year. And we've only continued to grow from there. So what does Freed do? So we built an AI Scribe. It listens to a clinician and patient conversation. It transcribes that visit. And then using LLMs, we write the clinical note for the clinician. So we really designed Freed to be really simple. We didn't want this to be like other healthcare software where you have to sit through hours of training just to use it. Freed works. We have an iPhone app, an Android app, a web app. We also have a Chrome extension. But it's really simple. You open it. You press one button to capture the conversation. You can use it for in-person or virtual visits. Once the visit is over, you click one button to end it. And within about a minute, the note will be written for you. You can then edit the note in Freed and actually teach the AI to learn from your edits so it can apply those same edits to your future notes. Once you're done, we also generate a patient instructions that you can email to your patients or print out for them. And these patient instructions are much better than the after-visit summaries that EHRs create because they're actually personalized to the visit. It's based on your conversation with your patient. And we then allow you to copy and paste into your EHR, so it doesn't require months-long integrations through your IT department. So really, you can sign up for Freed and start using it within minutes. Today, we have over 15,000 clinicians who are using Freed on a regular basis, and our mission is really to increase clinician happiness. And this goes back to our founding story. So our CEO was an ex-Facebook engineer, and when ChatGPT came out, he thought, how can I use this to help my partner, who's a family medicine doctor? So they have a little bit of a running joke because every night she'd come home from clinic or a long day at the hospital, and rather than spending time together or eating dinner together, she'd say, I have to go finish my notes. And so he worked on Freed and built this really for her, really to make her happy. And the feedback we get from our customers is honestly incredible. We talk to our customers and they tell us things like, I'm saving 1 to 2 hours a day from charting. I'm able to invest that time in myself. I can go work out. I can spend time with my family. I feel like I have a better work-life balance, which is something that's very rare for clinicians. We've also heard from people who say, I was planning on retiring, but since I started using Freed, I found the joy in practicing medicine again. I'm going to keep practicing for at least a few more years. What actually was surprising too was a lot of clinicians told us that their patients actually liked that they were using Freed. And it was because they were no longer staring at their computer trying to write down everything that you talked about and trying to finish your note while you have that short, 10, 15 minute window together. They're actually able to just sit there, look the patients in the eye and talk to them. And they just know that they're going to remember everything because Freed is there to capture it for them. So how does the technology work? It's fully automated. There's no human in the loop. We use AI to transcribe the system. We took the open source Whisper X model and we customized it for us and we fine-tuned it to work in medical settings. And then we use a number of different LLMs to generate a note. We don't just use one. You don't always need to use the most powerful, advanced, expensive LLM for every step of the note generation process. So we use sometimes 3 to 4 different LLMs to generate a single note. Obviously, being healthcare and working with sensitive information, security and compliance is really top of mind for us. So we have all the compliance as you can see on this screen. And what's the pricing? So it's free for anyone that wants to try it for 7 days. You can do unlimited visits that week. And if you decide to sign up, it's $99 a month. This pricing I think is honestly really exciting to me. So I was actually a human scribe when I was a pre-med undergrad. I worked in a busy ER, and I probably cost $4,000 to $5,000 a month. And I was also human, right? So I had to take time off, vacations, sick days, and I quit after a year because I got into medical school. So Freed, as an AI scribe, it never takes time off, never takes breaks, never needs to eat, never quits. And it's only $100 a month. One thing that was really cool is human scribes, because they're so expensive, was really reserved for high-paying specialties. So orthopedic surgery, emergency medicine. Our biggest group of users are actually primary care clinicians. So family medicine, pediatrics. I was actually talking to one of our customers not that long ago, and she was a high school social worker. She made less than $60,000 a year. And she never would have had access to a scribe. But for her, Freed was worth it because it was saving her 2 hours a day. So this price point really makes having a scribe accessible to many more people. So this is a case study from a U.S. health system in the Midwest. They wanted to test out Freed before deploying it to all their clinicians. So they did a little 3-month trial. And at the end of the 3 months, they asked all the clinicians that were using Freed a few questions. What was really exciting to us was 100% said they felt happier working since starting using Freed. 85% said they saved at least an hour a day, and 40% said they saved up to 2 hours a day. And for the administrators, what was really exciting to them was the time that the clinicians took to close their chart decreased by 75%. There's a lot of business people in here, so that managing your cash flow is really important. You can't really bill for anything until the note's closed. So the administrators loved it too, as much as the clinicians did. So this led to a very successful rollout. And we actually were not involved in this at all. They were just so excited with the results, they decided to share it with us. We didn't even ask for it. But that just kind of shows the kind of clinician love we get from the product. So we're going to do a demo, but before we do that, I just want to say that we did create a special coupon code for this conference. It's UCLA. So if you subscribe and you put in that coupon code, you get the first month free, so $100 off. So if you want to free yourself from writing notes, or maybe free a loved one or someone from writing notes, please share it. Post it on your socials. We don't care. We raise a bunch of money, and there's no better way to spend it than freeing clinicians. So with that, maybe I could bring up Alexa, who's going to help demo the product with me. I will show the screen later. A lot of clinicians use their phone to capture the conversation, so I'm going to do that. And before I start recording, Alexa, is it okay if I use a recording software called Freed to capture this conversation? It helps me write my note, so I can spend more time with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. So I'm going to click the capture conversation button.
Great.
So Alexa, what brings you in to see me today?
Unfortunately, I've had a sore throat for about a week now.
I'm sorry to hear that. Other than the sore throat, are you having any other symptoms?
With the sore throat, it really hurts to speak as well to swallow. And for the past 2 days, I've also had a low-grade fever.
Oh, how high did your fever get?
Probably about 101 was the highest.
Okay.
Yes.
Any runny nose, headaches, blurry vision, anything unusual like that?
No, nothing like that.
Any problems breathing?
No, nothing like that.
Chest pain or funny heart rhythms?
No.
Okay. Are you otherwise pretty healthy? Do you have any other medical issues?
No, no other medical issues to speak about.
Do you take any medications regularly?
Just daily dietary supplements.
Okay. Any allergies to medications?
No allergies to medications.
Okay. And have you been around anyone sick that you know of?
Not that I know of, but I'm at a business school, so people are usually sick.
Makes sense. All right. I'm going to do a quick exam and listen to your heart. Okay. Normal rate and rhythm, normal S1, S2, no murmurs, rubs, or gallops. I'm listening to your lungs. Okay. Clear to auscultation bilaterally, no wheezing, no crackles. Can you open your mouth for me and take a look inside your mouth? Okay. I see some redness in the back of your throat. All right. Very good. So I think most likely this is a viral infection. But let's do some tests and just confirm. And we'll send off a test for COVID. I'll send off a test for flu since it is flu season. Oh, I forgot to ask you, did you get your flu shot this year?
I did.
Okay, good. That's good to hear. And we'll also do a strep throat test just to see if it could potentially be a bacterial infection. And depending on the results, I'll let you know if you need to start any medications.
Awesome. Sounds great.
Any questions for me?
No, that's it.
All right. Hope you feel better soon.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, I'll hit the end button. And I can enter her name. So name's the note. And it's going to start uploading. I'm going to pull up my computer screen. So a lot of clinicians will record on her phone, but edit or view and edit the note on her computer just because it gives them a bigger screen. It takes about a minute. So what's happening right now is the conversation we had is being transcribed word for word. Again, we're using AI. It's an ASR system that we custom designed, and it's fine-tuned for medical visits. Once the visit is transcribed, it's working. Once the visit is transcribed, we feed that transcript into the LLM to start generating the note. Oh, perfect. Okay. So you log in, you can see here on the left-hand side are my notes. You can see that there's a note that I called Alexa at the top. So I open it. So here's the note from our conversation. You can see the subjective section, chief complaint, sore throat for about a week. This gives the history that she gave. We talked about medications. She's on just some daily dietary supplements. She mentioned that she's a student at business school. And this is just a summary of the review of systems that I asked. Down here is the objective, and you may have noticed that when I was examining her, I was narrating my my exam findings. So that's one thing that clinicians kind of have to change because you're not used to necessarily saying everything out loud, but it helps the AI know what to put into the note. And at the bottom, the note, it wrote a little brief one-liner at the top, and then talks about the problem, the assessment, and the plan. And then, as I mentioned, we do generate patient instructions. And as you can see, it's very much personalized to the conversation we actually had. So unlike, the typical AVS summary that EHRs produce, it talks about exactly what we talked about. And we have a little button here. You can send it via email to her in a secure way, or they can copy and print it out to hand to her on her way out. And that's it.
All right, thank you so much. Now we'd like to welcome up Conor and Akara.
Hi, everybody. My name is Conor. I'm the CEO of Akara, and I'm also a technical optimist, which I realize that sounds a little like I'm in an AA meeting here, admitting to that. What I mean by that is that I believe there's a class of problems that humans alone can't solve by ourselves, and we actually need technology quite urgently to solve them. And back in 2014, when I became a professor at Trinity College in Dublin, it was really these class of problems that I was committed to solving. And I built a research group that was focused on doing this specifically within healthcare. Our starting point was actually elder care. There's a huge population demographic challenge, and supporting older people is really, really tough, and there's a massive labor shortage. So we felt that robotics was a good way to do this, and we ended up building a robot that went into nursing homes and did a great job of freeing up staff to focus on more patient and resident-centered care. Challenge was when COVID came around, it was really, really hard for us to continue this. But it presented an opportunity because so much of the technology that we developed in robotics and AI was transferable into other parts of the healthcare system. So it was really taking that initiative and deciding as a team to take the leap and to set up a company to try and to translate what we'd learned. We'd seen firsthand what potential was to use robotics and AI technologies to free up people. We'd done that in nursing homes. What we saw in hospitals was a slightly different problem. We saw that time in their operating rooms was where we wanted to free up the time, because the operating room in particular is the lifeblood of the healthcare system, especially over here. It represents a massive amount of a hospital's revenue. In some hospitals, it's 70%. Yet, 2 hours a day are lost through preventable inefficiencies. And it was really this problem we wanted to see if the same methods and technologies could add value. And we spent time trying to figure out what was the root causes of these things, and we kind of break it down into two areas. The first, we call them bottlenecks. These are processes, usually they involve a lot of manual things, and they just take time. Examples would be, if you have a surgical robot and it takes 40 minutes to set up, that's a bottleneck. Similarly, cleaning is a bottleneck. A lot of the times these bottlenecks, aren't actually leading to improved outcomes for patients. But, if you solve them, you can free up time. The second one, which I think is probably more systematic, it's got to do with scheduling. What you see here on this graph is every little dot you see here represents a surgery. And what the y-axis is the essentially how close their scheduled time of the surgery matched to the time it actually took to do the surgery. And what you'd hope for is for everything to be zero. That means you're really getting it good. The blue lines either side is a 10-minute window. And what you see is that there's a very large number of cases where they're outside of the predicted periods. If it's a negative number, it means that the surgery's gone late. If it's positive, it means that it's ended prematurely. And I should preface by saying that this isn't emergency surgery. This is actually very routine surgery. So this points to a big problem. And I think to understand it, it's helpful to put yourself in the shoes of the folks that are doing this job. So meet Janice. Janice is an operating room coordinator. It's an administrative role. She doesn't have any nursing background at all, hasn't spent much time in an operating room except for when she herself had her tonsils removed as a kid. So it's her job to try and figure out how to best organize the operating rooms. And to say she doesn't have the tools to do this, I think is an understatement. So her first point of call to try and figure this out would be the electronic health record. And thankfully, people take copious notes in the operating room. And these would represent four of the most important and basic timestamps that exist in a surgery. What time did the patient arrive? What time did the surgery start? What time did the surgery finish? And what time did the patient leave? Without these, it's impossible to predict how long a case will take. The challenge is that if you're trying to predict surgery, you're not really interested in the likelihood that any particular one of these is noted correctly. You're interested in the likelihood that you can trust the record. So what we found is that a really good hospital has really good compliance. You probably have nurses that 9 out of 10 times will capture the time accurately. But again, if you're trying to trust a record, you care about the cumulative probability of all four of these. And when you work it out at 90%, a 90% accuracy rate, just over 1 in 3 is going to have a mistake in it that essentially means you can't trust the data. If you decide to take more timestamps, that number is nearly 1 in 2. And then the more detail you want to get into, you bring up to say 10, then more than 1 in 2 of your surgical records has timestamp data that you can't believe. And it was this insight that motivated us to design what we call our AI sensor. This is here, it's about 6 inches by 6 inches. And what's interesting about it is that it's not using camera technology, it's actually using a thermal imaging technology. And inside each of these things, we have a special chip that runs, we call it AI at the edge. So it's running AI models at blitzingly speed. And it means we don't have to depend on the hospital's network to do it. This is an image of it in an operating room here in LA. It's not UCLA Health yet, but hopefully. But you can see it's very non-intrusive, sits on the wall. And what our AI is trained to do is detect specific surgical events that happen. And whether that's people arriving, whether it's surgery start, there's a whole heap of them. And what we're able to do then is develop this and put it into the system. There's one other thing that I want to show you now, hopefully it'll work live, so this is the picture of it. And there's two characteristics that I think are quite interesting. The first is, because it's thermal, it can't see who I am. So this is really helpful because surgeons and patients, like, they don't want their privacy compromised. And similarly, a hospital doesn't want a medical malpractice case on their hands if they've got 4K high definition footage of something that went wrong. So we're just capturing the data we need. And also, it's extremely low resolution. So when you guys are watching the Super Bowl this weekend, which presumably most of you will be, you're probably going to be watching it on a high definition television. So that's 4,000 pixels across. This is 160. And the implications of this is that it means we can actually put this across a hospital's network without it affecting their bandwidth. Whereas most of our competitors that use cameras require really big capital installations. The other thing that's interesting to point to this is that the data we're capturing is working in real time. So the AI you're seeing here is working now on the fly. And what we can do is we can set this up so that it notifies people when certain events happen. So for example, you'll see it going red now when it's not seeing me. And the reason why this is helpful is that you can imagine your recovery section, your PACU section wants to know when the surgery's finished so they can make sure that they're ready. We want to avoid the bed blocks. But they're unable to do so if they're waiting for a nurse to ring and they're kind of chasing their tails, whereas this gives them a real-time view of what's actually happening in the operating room. And the data we're collecting has even more value to the CEO or the COO because they're concerned to know what's actually happening in their operating rooms. And this is real-time data and objective data that's coming off that says just how much hours a day the operating rooms are in use. And we're able to do this longitudinally. The dotted lines show the first one is a 4-hour time frame. The second one was a 9-hour a day or 8 hours a day on average. So you can see exactly how much capacity you're losing out and through inefficiency. If you want to look into the daily trends, you can see heat maps to show what times the surgeries are most busy and what times they're least busy. So you can manage your staffing, so you can understand which parts of the day you can actually free up your surgeries better. And again, this works out of the box. This kind of data I can get together in like 2 days of deploying it in a hospital. So we'll move back to the other. All right, so now we've hopefully made some strides in solving the data problem. Let's now move on to scheduling. So our scheduler, Janice, she has now she can trust the data a little bit more, but she'll get a sheet like this, and this is probably familiar to some of you. This is essentially a chart that says the type of surgery that's going to happen. And in it, you'll have a line that'll very ambiguously give a time estimate. And this is a nightmare for someone to try and figure out, especially someone who's not an expert in the field, because it lacks really important context. So, like, does that hour and a half represent the equipment time, setup time? What exactly is it? Is that the time I want to give me a buffer to train a fellow, or is that the time that's actually needed? It's vague. And not only that, but even if you knew exactly what it was, you don't understand the distribution. So let's say it's a mean time, it's an average time. That could materialize in different ways. You could be dealing with a type of surgery that sometimes or quite frequently goes really late, and you could be dealing with an hour or 2 hour swing. Similarly, it could end early, in which case, it's a highly unpredictable case. Or you could be dealing with a very predictable case where, the standard deviation is very, very low on that. And again, you can't see that out of the gate. So what we've built is a tool that the scheduler can use that makes their life an awful lot easier. So they simply just log on. The data we collect is in a database which we can put into their electronic health record if we need to. You pick the surgeon, which is on their chart, and then if it's a routine case, there's a drop down. If they want to enter CPT codes, we can do that as well. And then you just hit predict. And what you see here is the surgeon in question. They've done 3 cases like this before. There's been nearly 30 cases done from other surgeons. You see more or less what the time is. You notice with this surgeon, the error bar is a lot smaller. So that says there's a lot less variability. So you can be much more confident in your prediction. And on the right-hand side, you've got this nice little bar to give you a sense of the distribution. So you can actually check if we assign a certain amount of time for the case, what is the probability that it will end within that time frame? So this gives you data that you can then go back to your surgeon with if the surgeon's giving a time that's very unlikely, and you can kind of negotiate what makes the most amount of sense. And we think that this could be really helpful and really impactful to be able to actually improve the day-to-day scheduling efficiencies. And just to give you a sense of how that impact might materialize, let's just end with a quick kind of case study or kind of a use case. So let's take a standard outpatient procedure that would, or operating room that's dedicated for outpatient procedures. They take an hour, patient in, patient out, and then they give a 45-minute turnaround time for everything else. We're very confident based on the work that we've been doing that we can shave on average 15 minutes off a lot of these cases.